everybody. I'm Roger. This is Jason, and welcome to Cheap Seats. Hope your week is going well, and we're going to get into the gist of the sports news that is currently going on in the world of sports. But first, we're going to just give a little bit of a update on our trivia question. No answers at all. We didn't get any correct, Jason. I couldn't believe this. But the question was, where the first Super Bowl was played, who were the participants who won, the score, and the MVP? The answer is, do you have any guess at all?
Well, I know part of it. So
Which
I
part?
I know who played in the first Super Bowl, and I know who won. I don't know the details, so.
Yeah, we asked for, these are not easy, and we didn't.
No.
We asked people that they don't cheat and Google it. Green Bay, Kansas City in the first Super Bowl. Green Bay won 35-10. Bart Starr, the great quarterback, Hall of Famer, was the MVP, and it was played in the old LA Memorial Coliseum. So we can't congratulate anybody because nobody got it correct. If you want the next trivia, get on Facebook, which leads me to, again, if you want to join the Facebook group of Cheap Seats, just search Cheap Seats, find us, invite yourself. You can join on your own. And that is that. Let's get to the meat of the order, and it's Drew Brees. Drew Brees made some comments yesterday to the media, and apparently taken out of context today, he was, basically apologizing. This is what is actually what he said. In attempt to talk about respect, unity, and solidarity centered around the American flag and the national anthem, I made comments that were insensitive and completely missed the mark on the issues we are facing right now as a country. I'm not going any further on the comments. What I'm getting at, Jason, in this whole is not really what he said, but there were apparently teammates as well as former and current NFL players that spoke out against what he said. Now, he has since apologized today, as I said, and also apparently there was a video chat amongst the team, and they all understood Drew Brees is about as clean can be. Drew Brees gives a lot of money to the New Orleans organization, or not the organization, the city, I should say, in the hurricane relief and a lot of other good deeds. He's never been in any kind of trouble. And to think that he's a bad person for being misquoted, I think that's completely crazy. So my point was not exactly what he said from a sports standpoint of how it'll affect his teammates if and when they get back to playing games. Will it or will it not? Will they forgive? Most of them have already done it. Some still, sort of still thinking about it. How do you feel about this situation?
I feel like that, first of all, everybody needs this. So when people are talking and you don't want to listen, you can just blow the air horn. But no, honestly, to get into it, that's a difficult situation because they're all paid professionals. They're all paid to work together. And I've been in that position where you have to work with somebody that you may or may not like. You may or may not like what they have to say, but you still have to work with them, and you're getting paid to do that. And whether it affects their play or not, I would say it will, just because we're all human, and if you've got that in the back of your mind, you're going to be thinking about that situation unless you go and you resolve that issue that you have with whoever it is that you're working with. But as a professional, you're getting paid to produce on demand. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional. An amateur produces, when they can. A professional produces on demand. And so the professionalism that's going on in that locker room between those team members to come together and still play as a team, regardless of what one member says about whatever, I think is going to speak to the leadership that they have in the organization in the New Orleans Saints, because this is where the coach needs to come in, and the coach needs to resolve help the players resolve these issues that they have between each other so that they can realize, hey, we are all on the same team. We're all in the same fight. We're all here to do one job, and that job is to focus on football and win games.
Okay, good points. All of them are good points. We'll get on to the next subject here, and it's the NFL rules. A couple that we really wanted to get into were two of them One was the onside kick, as opposed to going on it for 4th and 15 from your own 25-yard line. The rule is that you have a choice, and if I remember reading it correctly, you can only do this twice in a game, so you only have 2 chances to do it. You would either get the ball at your own 25-yard line, and it would be 4th and 15, or you just go the old standard onside kick. What do you feel about that?
So that's an interesting rule change. I know that they were making changes to kicking in football because those are the plays that typically have the most injuries, and they were, player safety was concerned there. So with this one, doing a 4th and 15 at the 25, I feel like that you probably, depending on who your quarterback is, you probably have a lot better chance of making that than an onside kick for one. And then the other question that I have is that going to bring in, the specialist one-play quarterbacks that are coming in to just do that 4th and 15-yard play, that maybe they're not good otherwise, but they got the arm strength to pull it off, in the pocket presence to do that. Is that going to be changing, the strategy? Yeah, probably for a lot of teams, especially if you're talking about like Pat Mahomes.
Good points. I think we'll see how it plays out. I think Bill Belichick might be at the top of the list as far as coaches coming up with some razzle-dazzle plays, if you will, without Tom Brady, of course. We got into the other rule change possibility, and this to me was just really stupid, that they have finally decided to do something about it, that you can't have multiple delay of games without really a penalty as far as the time goes. You can continue to have delay of games, and the clock will continue to tick after play is resumed. This way, one delay a game, the clock starts when the next play starts. You can't just keep on delay of games. It happened in the Tennessee-New England playoff game last year against Bill Belichick, who has used it before. I think it's a great thing. You have the one delay a game, and then that's it. You can't continue to have delay of games because you could really run out the clock if you wanted to, if circumstance arises. How about your thoughts?
I agree. I think that, that's probably the strategy that they were trying to use, is to run down the clock as much as possible, because if you're on 4th down and you have to turn over the ball because you're not in scoring position, that's the strategies you have, give the enemy as little time with the ball as possible. And taking that away changes the strategy. Maybe you're going to see more people doing the 4th and 15 thing now.
Both of them sort of coordinate together. There's no question about that. But I just think we'll see what happens. Hopefully there'll be a season we can see it go and see what goes on. But the NBA, they have decided now to go to 22 teams. They decided that today. The Players Association and the NBA have agreed on that. Under the plan, this is how I'm reading it off ESPN report. 13 Western Conference teams, 9 Eastern Conference teams will play 8 regular season seeding, quote-unquote, games, a possible play-in tournament for the 8th seed and playoffs, and all this will be taken on in Orlando. Then it'll be the top 16 teams in the East and Western Conferences will be joined by teams currently within 6 games of 8th place in the 2 conferences. And this whole thing is like, because of the coronavirus, it's crazy. And I think what I'm really saying as a sports fan, and I don't follow the NBA that religiously, but I want to see it and see what it looks like instead of trying to describe it, because trying to describe this to me is, driving my crazy brain crazier.
Right. It's like 2 blind men trying to describe an elephant. One's got the tail, one's got the trunk, and they're similar, but they're different. I don't know as much about it as what you know. I just know what you read about it. And to me, it's a very interesting proposition. The only problem that I see with both the NBA and the NHL is that we're getting so late into the year that with that many teams, are they going to end up overlapping seasons? That's the question I have.
Yeah, and it's a good, valid point. Let's move to the NHL. And hopefully we will get back to playing. But so far, the NHL, we know that there are going to be 24 teams. We sort of delved this in a little bit in the past shows. 24 team tournament. And And what's going to happen is the top 4 teams from each conference are going to have byes, which they deserve. So you'll have 8 teams. You have 16 left. You'll have 8 teams from the East. You'll have 8 teams from the West. They'll be seeded 5 against 12, 6 against 11, so forth. And then those teams will then play the top 4 seeds. Now, what is interesting is that the bracketing will be reseeded after every round, which I am total favor of. I don't think you should reward a low seed to get a better situation, though when you think about it, it really doesn't matter because all the games are going to be played on a neutral ice with no fans. So in essence, it's sort of kidding around. You're saying the only advantage of home ice, well, there is one advantage, major advantage in hockey as a home team. Do you know what that is?
The fans.
No. I'm talking about on the ice. I'm talking about there's one major advantage on the ice. Take away the fans, that is a major advantage for a home team. Okay. The advantage is you get last change. You get the last change on the ensuing face-off. So if the visiting team brings out 5 new skaters, you have a choice as a home team to bring 5 skaters on after they do. That's really the only advantage I can see in this whole setup with no fans. Of course, the fans are something that a lot of people say, hey, you know what? Sometimes the fan support doesn't win you games, so that's another story for another day. Let's get on to the Major League Baseball situation. 10 days is what I've heard. 10 days is what I've heard that the players and the owners have to agree with something as far as what percentage are they going to knock off their contract because of the smaller season that they're going to apparently have. And I've heard anywhere from 50 to 100 games. I don't know what's going to decide that, but right now they're still far apart. They have 10 days. You think they'll get it done?
No.
You don't think they will? Okay.
I don't know. I hope they do because I want to see some baseball this year. And, the last I heard was something around 80 games, but we'll see what happens. And, a decision is better than no decision. So a decision either to continue and start up. If they're going to do that, they need to roll with it, and they need to do it pretty quickly because, again, we're getting pretty late in the year. It's already the middle of June, or it's already the first week of June. And baseball's got a little bit more leeway than, hockey or basketball because baseball typically doesn't play in the fall or winter. So you got a little bit more leeway there. I think they've got time to do a pretty good season. I think if they get their act together and they do make this agreement within their 10-day deadline, then we'll see some baseball. It'll be great. Everybody will be happy.
I got one final thought on all this between the baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. This specifically is on basketball and hockey more than anything. And we were talking before our show that when will the next season start? Because if the NHL and the NBA are going well into October probably, that's usually when your season starts. So then what are they going to do? Are they going to start like 2 months later and maybe have a condensed season? Or where's this going to lead us?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting proposition because you've got, if you're talking in the NHL's case, 24 teams, and they play a series of games, best of 5, right? So that's going to be, they could play, unless they're playing every day, which they could, that would be a lot of games to try to squeak in before the end of the season, before the next season starts.
Okay, you got some soccer news for us, some maybe record-breaking news to happen?
Right, so in the Bundesliga, Robert Lewandowski, the starting striker for Bayern München, is within 11 goals of tying the Bundesliga single-season goal record, which was 40 goals set by Gerd Müller back in the 1971-72 season. And Gerd Müller was actually also the striker number 9 for Bayern München back then. Now, he's got 5 matches left to play, assuming he doesn't get hurt. And he's got 29 goals right now. So that means he needs at least 1 hat-trick and braces in the other matches, or some combination thereof. What do you think, Roger? Is he going to make it or not? I think he could.
You're the soccer expert. You're the soccer expert. I'm not going there. So we're wrapping up the show here. We just want to give you the results of our. We had a poll on what our fans, and we got a pretty decent response actually. Some of them were, I think, tongue in cheek, and some of them were actually honest. This wasn't tongue in cheek. They wanted me to be more quiet. Can you believe that? Come on.
Who would want that?
Apparently your horn does. But no, actually of the real sports, we had snow skiing, curling, JCC softball, which is a Jewish Center softball league that I play in, spike ball. That's for my cousin up in Chicago. Hard game. I won't get into it. Maybe one of these days we'll get into it. We had candlepin bowling. We had MMA, UFC. We had fast pitch softball, boxing. We only had one vote on boxing. We had 2 votes for soccer, 1 vote for hockey, 3 for football, 4 for basketball, and 3 for baseball. So it was sort of all over the place. But they wanted me to be more. What?
Which one won?
The one that won was me. And here I am. I'm talking more than ever. Yeah. So we'll have to maybe refigure things out. One last thing before we close here for final comments. The Rock, we're doing a little bit more of a contest here. If you can, after over a period of time, if you can record and let us know when the show comes up in the future, the bobblehead of the show and the cap of the host, in this case me, the cap of the host, not the other guy, in this case Jason, Cincinnati Cyclones cap, the Rock bobblehead, write it down. At some point down the road, we're going to ask people who watch the show who had the best answers and the most correct will win something. Maybe it'll be an autographed 8x10 picture of Jason at a soccer game. I don't know. But Jason, any final thoughts before we shut down?
All I have to say is...
Take care, guys, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.